Hey guys, my name is Nandini Parimi. I am a former Android Nano degree graduate at Udacity. I currently work as a senior software developer. Today I'm going to share some knowledge about fragments. I'm going to provide a brief overview and then have some coding exercises. So let's get started. So here is a list of the topics that I'll be covering in this session. So we'll start with introduction and understand when and why we use fragments actually. And we'll also have some coding examples. We'll dive more deeper into the life cycle of the fragments, try to understand the advantages, and finally wrap it up with a coding exercise. So let's get started. A fragment can be considered as a self-contained portion of a UI in an activity. An activity can have multiple fragments as its children. Also, fragments can be considered as functions, right? If you're a programmer, you might have written a lot of reusable code. So you can say a fragment is something like that because it can be reused across multiple activities. Because fragments are self-contained, they have their own click events, they have their own life cycle. So that can be considered as one of the biggest advantages of having fragments. Because they have their own life cycle, it can be used across multiple activities very easily. So on screen right now, you can see that we have two different fragments used in a mobile app. And the same two different fragments are used differently on a multi-pane or a tablet app, right? So let's take an example or real world example of Gmail. So if you open the Gmail app on your mobile, you can see the list of the emails. And when you click on one of the list items, it actually opens up a second screen with the detailed view, right? Now, the view is different when you actually open the app, the Gmail app in a tablet. It actually shows the list of the items on the left and the detailed view on the right. Now, this can be actually easily achieved using fragments. So if you have the same view, which can be used across multiple activities, fragments are the way to go. So let's see how to create fragment. Let's write some code. So open your Android Studio and a project that you want to add a fragment to. Right click on the folder and click on the new and fragment and click on a blank fragment. Here you can name the fragment the way you want, and you can choose the options of either having to create a layout XML automatically, or probably you can go ahead and create your own as well. And then just say click finish. Now this would actually create a fragment and also a associated layout with the fragment in the app. So here we can see the layout that was created as a part of the fragment creation and also the actual fragment. Now here you can see that the fragment actually has a constructor, and I just imported the class, fragment class, and you have an on create view, which is the first thing that is called when we actually include the fragment. So we can think of fragments as mini activities, as portions of UI, each with their own life cycle. But they also have to be embedded within an activity. Remember, fragments can't be independent. So how does this fragment's life cycle compare with the activity's life cycle, and how do they work together? That's what we're going to discuss next. So as the host activity moves through its callback, like start, resume, pause, or on stop, so will the fragments. And in most cases, you can move any functionality you would have put in those activity lifecycle callbacks to the corresponding callback inside the fragment. So fragments have their own additional lifecycle callbacks that allow them to be created or removed in an activity at runtime. So rather than building a new view in onCreate as activities do, fragments use a different event for this called an onCreate view. OnCreate view is where a fragment inflates its UI, hooks up any data sources it needs, and then returns the created view to the host activity. And there's a corresponding onDestroy view callback that can be called before the host activity is destroyed. Now that we know what a fragment is and what its life cycle looks like, let's actually take a look at some code and try to see how to include the fragments inside an activity. So in order to add the fragment to an activity, you need to instantiate the fragment first, as shown on the screen. And now get the support fragment manager. We basically use the fragment manager in order to add the fragment into a particular container and commit the transaction. So here we can see that we begin the transaction, add the fragment to the particular container, and then commit. Well, that's it. That's how we add fragment to an activity. Great. So let's take a look at some of the advantages of fragments. Fragments are reusable. They help us in building responsive and more flexible UI. They can be added and removed dynamically during runtime, which is one of the biggest powers of fragments. And they help us create more modular code. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the session. So the key takeaways from this session should be how to use the fragments, when to use the fragments, what are the advantages, and how the life cycle of the fragment works. I hope you'll be able to use the knowledge from this session in the upcoming projects. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. My email address is nandinnicbit@gmail.com. I hope to see you soon. Thank you.